It is time for a Florida State recruiting rundown.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. Today's show is going to be a recruiting rundown discussing the Noles official visits, some of their top prospects, and where I think some of the top players in the state of Florida are going to sign. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So today, just going to be straightforward 100% recruiting. We're almost on the cusp of all the official visits getting going. A few of the guys actually start taking visits next weekend and get it really rolling. I know Max Buchanan's going to go to UCF. I'm going to talk about him a little bit today. But the first player I'm going to talk about is DJ Pickett. For those of you on YouTube, you might have seen the thumbnail with the photo of DJ that I had up there. I just want to address his recruitment to the best of my ability, and then we'll move forward from there. DJ is from Zephyr Hills High School on the northeast edge of Tampa, one of the rarest players that I've ever scouted. 6'4", corners just don't grow on trees. It's about as rare as it gets. There's maybe one every 10, 15 years kind of deal. And he could play safety, he could play nickel, he could play receiver. But right now, most schools are going to try to play him at corner if they are fortunate enough to sign him. Miami, Oregon, LSU, Georgia. Those are the four that are most talked about. And it depends on the day which one's talked about the most. But Florida and Florida State are also involved as well. I've been hearing about this for a month or so. I don't buy it until I see the official visits lined up. But DJ, from what I've heard, he wants to take a couple of visits during the season. They could be the Florida or Florida State visit. Now, he could switch them around too. But this is what I know. I've known him since 8th grade. This is as rare a player as it gets, but it's also a young man that keeps everything very close to the vest. He does not like the recruiting attention. He doesn't like to do interviews. He's a quiet kid, just his natural personality. I would not put any stock. I cannot say this 500 times and say it enough. I do not put any stock on him being a leader with this school or that school right now. Will not matter. DJ will take his visits. I know him well. It doesn't matter if somebody leads after a visit or after like the 4 visits he takes this summer. Irrelevant. I do not care if he commits this summer. Irrelevant. It will not matter until the fall, in the middle of the fall at the earliest. For the schools, what matters is they got to recruit him like every day is the last day and it's National Signing Day. That's why college coaches make a lot of money. It's not a lot of fun, but they got to go after him like that. They have to try to make sure they keep their visit or try to get a different visit date, etc., whatever it is for each staff. And right now it is a push and pull situation among several schools. LSU, I was told, was the leader at one point. Miami, Oregon had 2 visits with him, etc. He could go to a lot of places, but then there's still the chance of Florida State getting visits this fall, and you never want to count out Georgia for a top prospect either. So I'm just telling everybody that is hearing about Pickett with any particular school, I guarantee you this is going to go into the fall. He's a kid that wants to go through and do things his own way. He's always been that way, which I respect. It'll end up being 4 or more visits for DJ Pickett. That's on the officials. Now, he's taking a ton of unofficials too, and he may take a few more. But the official visits are going to go deep into this, and October's as early as I would expect a commitment, and I think he's got a date somewhere around the 5th or 7th or something he's talked about. But I honestly think that recruitment won't be over until signing day. That's just my opinion from knowing him and talking to people around the situation. This is a long, long haul. Florida State's got to throw their hat in the ring because, again, this is a special player. Obviously, the coaching staff would love him, Sertan, everybody else, because you just can't find guys like him. Next up, I'm just going to kind of go through some of the players that Florida State's visit list is massive. I'll do a little bit more of this sometime in the next week, maybe tomorrow, maybe Saturday, whatever. But we're going to talk about some of the key guys they have visiting, going to give a little more detail about them, what I know, what I've heard about their recruitment, experiences I've had talking to them. So we're going to kind of go over a guy I mentioned the other day, and that's Josh Petty. Just want to go a little deeper into it. He's at Fellowship Christian. I couldn't remember the school the other day when I was talking about him. It's on the north edge of Atlanta. Offensive tackle. He's been crystal balled or projected, whatever you want to call it, to Florida State. I don't know a lot about him because I've never seen him play live, but he's a kid at a small school. It makes it really, really hard to evaluate because big guys just murder people at the smaller level. But his offer list is crazy. Georgia is about the only school that's really not after him, and they like bigger guys. Josh is in the 250 range, needs to add weight, probably redshirt, but he has tremendous feet, and he has the ability to get out in space and move guys. So I don't know where he's going to go, but right now Florida State is the school that's been projected by On3, so that's somebody to look at, very important with him. Also would be the official visits. Georgia Tech, May 28th, Clemson, May 31st, Auburn, June 4th, Tennessee, June 7th. Then 2 weeks later, Florida State gets June 21st. I assume he's got something going on June 14th. Next up, Tavion Wallace. This is one of my favorite players in the class. Really athletic kid out of Wayne County High School in Jessup, Georgia. This is a traditional linebacker from Florida State standards. More my era, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, 200 pounds, give or take. 6 foot, 6'1", probably closer to 6 foot, more likely, but can really run. He'll end up weighing 220 and being a will or an overhang linebacker. This is the kind of player that Florida State is famous for back in the days when they just had more speed than anybody on defense and really just chased everything down from behind. Even if you blocked it right, somebody would come from the backside. That was Florida State's MO, and I kind of think that's where they're at right now too. I mean, like Deloach was that way last year, right? Like the play he had against Clemson. He closed a lot of ground. He blitzed from very deep, still got to Klubnik, fumble, takes it to the house. That changed their season. I think this is the kind of guy that kind of fits that, but his visit list is unique. Arkansas on the 31st, June 7th, he's got UGA. Obviously got to work out the kinks with trying to get around the home state school. UF is June 14th, and then the 21st is going to be FSU. At least the Noles get the last visit there, but the visit with Georgia always scares me for an in-state kid, especially a defensive player that Kirby wants. A player that I think, I would say for a month and a half or so, I thought Florida State had the best shot at was another kid that was kind of brought up, and that's Myron Charles. He was projected, just as a refresher, UF on the 31st, Miami June 14th, Florida State on June 21st. I like Florida State for him, and I know him pretty well. He could still go to Miami. He could still go to UF. I would say out of those two, UF is a little more likely. I think Miami's targeting the two kids at Miami Central, the 2D tackles there. But they try to recruit the local kids, and I get it. But Myron is 6'3.5", 6'4", 295 pounds, and he's really athletic. He's at Port Charlotte High School, about an hour or so south of Sarasota, and he's an in-state kid. Florida State needs more D tackles out of the high school ranks. This would be big for the program because you got to get as many of these guys as you can. Who pans out is who pans out, but can't find enough big body guys like this. That's something Bobby Bowden used to talk about a lot. Here's an ironic one. Peyton Joseph, Warner Robins, Georgia, Houston County. He's got several different schools still recruiting him, but he was committed to Florida. Now he's got a visit set for LSU on the 31st of this month, Memphis, which is kind of odd, on June 7th, and Florida State on June 21st. I like the player. I like his film and all that, but his visit list is just kind of odd. I don't know what's going on with that. And again, Florida State's projected with him, and they need offensive linemen, but it's just a weird list to me. I don't see any Auburn, Georgia, or Alabama for a kid this talented. That's very surprising to me. Florida State might get a steal right there. Byron Lewis, this is a kid I've talked about numerous times on this show and on others, one of the top running backs in America from American Heritage High School down in the Fort Lauderdale area. Miami on May 31st. Wisconsin is June 7th. Ohio State, June 14th. Florida State on June 21st. If you see a theme here, the big weekend for the most part for the Noles is June 21st for their official visits. So some of the news on commitments won't happen for them quite as quickly, but it's still more important to get these players than anything else. With Byron, power back, 6 foot, 205 pounds, but he can really catch. Miami and Wisconsin are the two schools I would say are the most likely. If it's not Florida State, he's also a kid that's a lot of people think will end up with the Noles. A player that I like, and this kind of goes with basically Norvell's staff in general since he's been in Tallahassee, they do their own evaluations. Max Redmond, Cardinal Newman, Palm Beach County down in South Florida. This is a kid that can play free safety. He might be able to play nickel or corner, but definitely can play free safety. Very athletic kid. He's been a little under-recruited. And I'm not exactly sure why. Cardinal Newman's a pretty good program now. So whatever the case, so be it. June 7th, he's got Florida State. Penn State's a school to watch out for. UCF could be a school to watch out for. But right now, Florida State seems to be the pretty heavy favorite. I'm curious to see if Florida, Miami, Auburn, anybody else in the Deep South comes after this kid. Again, I like his film. That's just me. But for some reason, not everybody's on the same page as me, but they can do whatever they want. That's just the way I look at it. And Norvell technically agrees. He's got an offer to him, and he's got a visit set up. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more recruiting and get into some more details about the players the Noles are after here on Locked On Seminoles. Wouldn't it be great if you could see all of your investment and retirement accounts in one place? Our sponsor today, Yahoo Finance, is a place you can do that. You can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need, and you can tend to all your portfolio with confidence. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind great investors. Whether you're a seasoned investor or looking for extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. Securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401k and other investments. A comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors, and it's Yahoo Finance that ensures that you get that each and every time. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor at yahoofinance.com. Yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. All right, let's talk a little more recruiting. We just finished up on the last segment with Max Redmond. Here's a player, the last name should be something that kindled some memories, and that is Caleb Falk. Yes, Keldrick Falk's younger brother from Highland Home in Alabama. He's visiting Florida State on the 31st. He's got Florida June 7th, Auburn June 14th, and Bama June 21st. Now, Caleb's a great kid, and I've seen him numerous times. I would be surprised he doesn't go to Auburn. He visits there quite a bit. His brother is there, but he's visiting Bama. He's visiting Florida State. I don't know what to make of his recruitment now, because I just kind of written him off and just figured he's just going to go and play for the Auburn Tigers. But that he has 3 additional visits, Florida's the other one, is a little baffling to me because I really thought he was dyed in. That was it. But you don't take 4 visits just to take them. So good for him if that's what he wants to do. But Florida State's got as good a shot of anybody if that's the case. This is a top 100 kind of recruit. Edge rushers don't grow on trees, and Falk is a kid Florida State, by all accounts, should definitely recruit. I'm curious to see how that one goes. But again, since he's got 4 visits, I don't really have any prediction on him. And I'm a guy that's pretty blunt, but I like Florida State's chances better than some others probably. But the family's also got relationships, so I'm not surprised by that. A guy that I really like their chances with is from a place that I wouldn't have projected earlier this year, and that's Chase Lofton out of Millard South, just outside of Omaha, Nebraska. He's a tight end, flex tight end, 6'4", 6'5", 220 pounds. He's got Florida State on June 7th. He's got A&M on June 14th, and then the home state Nebraska Cornhuskers on June 21st. Really good kid. I talked to him earlier this year. Has his head on straight on the field and off. But this is a guy that can go up and get it and makes plays after the catch too. I'm curious to see how he will adapt if he comes down and plays at A&M or Florida State against a different level of competition than what he's seen growing up through high school in the state of Nebraska. But again, the athleticism is very abundant. Running after the catch is not something tight ends do great normally, but this kid's more like a big receiver. He fits that flex tight end role very, very well. Back to the state of Alabama, Zion Grady's going to be visiting. This is a really important recruit for anybody that gets him on campus. Kind of like I mentioned with Caleb Falk, you just don't find enough edge rushers. Guys that are naturally long, naturally twitchy, and have the ability to come off the corner and get to the quarterback. 6'3", 225 out of Enterprise, Alabama, down on the southern part of the state. Miami is a team to watch out for there, May 31st. Florida State the weekend after, June 7th. Tennessee, June 14th. Auburn on the 10th of June, and Ohio State will round out the visit list on the 21st. That's a really good player. If Florida State's going to get over the top, I constantly mention South and Central Georgia. South Alabama is part of that too, because like the area he's from is not as University of Alabama centric, And they also screwed up his recruitment earlier this year. He was committed to Saban in Alabama. Then the new staff did not pick up where they should have and go after him the way everybody else did. And Alabama is out. Anytime Alabama is out for an in-state player, you got a shot. You got a shot. And Florida State's coming off a really good season. They've got a lot of momentum with their staff and who they have now. I think they got a shot here, and he would be a huge addition. A player that I've talked about and actually had on the show, Max Buchanan, just going to run down some of his stuff. UCF is coming up on the 17th of this month. Clemson, May 31st. Florida State, June 7th. Miami, June 14th. And then Penn State on the 21st. Max is an offensive lineman, probably going to be a center or a guard at a Seminole High School just north of Orlando. Seen him play numerous times. Really physical kid. He's also gotten a lot more technically sound, more consistent play-to-play. Doesn't get out over his feet like he used to as much. He's toned down the aggressiveness and lets the play come to him, and lets his athleticism and natural power kind of take over. Very good football player, and Florida State or anybody else would be fortunate to get him. He's one of the best interior offensive linemen in the class of 2025. Now, before I go into this last part of the show, I'm just going to talk about some of the top players in the state of Florida. Note that this year, in my opinion, has been a change in how the kids are committing. We're in the May evaluation period. I was at a practice today in Alabama. There'll be practices all over in Georgia and Florida. I'm going to go to one in Georgia tomorrow. We're seeing fewer commitments right now because there's still key portal guys out there. Even though the portal is closed, do note that doesn't mean that you can't sign with somebody. That means you can't enter your name in the portal. That ended on the 30th of April. So again, Florida State or anybody else could still sign somebody, but they need to find players, like one or two more guys in each school. That's probably why they're not focusing quite as much on recruiting, although we're switching into it. At the end of this month, all the way through June, there'll be commitments galore. So we're almost there, but not quite. Also, before I forget, make sure you check out Locked On Sports Today, because if you're using ESPN or Fox or something else, there's a better option. You should check out Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you each and every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming that you're going to get on the normal networks. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every day. When we come back, I'm going to break down the top players in the state of Florida, what I think about the guys right now, and where I think some of them are going to go. A few predictions to finish up today here on Locked On Seminoles. All right, today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on the spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, let's talk a little bit about the top players in the state of Florida. DJ Pickett is my top player, and I'm imagining most people have him there. We just talked about him at the beginning of the show, but again, just to reiterate, Florida State are trying to get visits. Miami, Oregon, Georgia, LSU are the other schools involved. They should all get visits. I think this recruitment will go very deep into the process. At the earliest, I think it'll be done is October, but more than likely signing day. Speaking of which, I know this won't make Noles fans very happy, but I only tell the truth. Solomon Thomas, I think, will go very deep into the process as well. He will take several visits. Florida's definitely involved. He's the offensive lineman out of Raines High School in Jacksonville, committed to the Noles quite a while ago. Miami and LSU are also right there. Do not be surprised if he signs with any of those four schools. Jamie French. At one point, I thought Florida State would be the team to get him. I do not necessarily think that anymore. His list has changed around so many times, I wouldn't predict anything. He recently dropped a top three, Miami, LSU, and Texas. It's changed too many times for me to even remotely figure out where Jamie's going. And I've known him since he was in 8th grade, but he is really all over the place. Ivan Taylor, he's committed to Notre Dame. He's locked in. He's going to be playing for the Irish. He's out of West Orange High School in the greater Orlando area. Javion Hilson, also committed to Florida State, arguably the best pass rusher in the country. pivotal that Florida State holds on to this kid, but Florida State, Miami, Alabama, numerous other programs are trying to get him. I would not be surprised at all if Javion signed with any of these schools. He's trying to give everybody at least an opportunity to give him a look on an official visit. So will it happen for Florida State? I don't know. But again, like, he's got all these visits lined up. Anything's possible. Not Miami. UCF's got a visit with him. My fault. But I doubt he's going to go to UCF. But then again, he's at Cocoa. It's right down the road from there. You never know. Alabama, Florida State are the other visits with him. Really good player. Great kid, too. I'm curious to see where he goes because Florida State needs more guys like him. Speaking of elite players, when we think about the state of Florida, there's not many guys better than Dallas Wilson. I'm surprised Florida State hasn't had more success with him. And I know he's been up. I know they've continued to recruit him. He's at Tampa Bay Tech. He's one of my favorite players in the country. I don't know if Florida State's going to get him back on campus for an OV or not, but that's a kid that I just think is incredible. And I really hope that Florida State, for their sake, can get him back on campus. He's committed to Oregon, Miami, LSU, and numerous other schools have been trying to get him. 6'3", about 200 pounds, and he's a very, very talented player. I would be surprised if at least a couple official visits didn't give him something to think about because it's a long way to Oregon from Tampa, Florida. Just my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Tarvos Alford, linebacker out of Vero Beach, committed to Florida State. Florida State and Miami thought they had a pretty good shot going into that commitment. I have no idea if he's going to flip. I have not heard anything here recently on him, but that is a big-time player, and it's a guy that they could use. This is one of those spots that I've consistently mentioned. Florida State must do better out of the high school ranks recruiting linebackers. The state of Florida is tremendous with linebackers almost every year. Here's a great chance to flip somebody. Especially somebody's got to stop the bleeding with Ohio State constantly getting kids out of the state of Florida. Another kid, and this is the guy I'll wrap it up with today. It would just be really gut-wrenching to lose him in the manner that it looks like it is right now. That's Jalen Wiggins. He's at Rickards High School in Tallahassee. He's committed to Florida. Defensive lineman, 250, 255. Really athletic, could play in a 3-4, could play in a 4-3. This is a very, very important recruit for Florida State. I know from talking to him face-to-face that he said Florida State was really coming after him. Not exactly shocking because he lives in Tallahassee and he's committed to Florida, but they need defensive linemen. That's the other spot they've got to do better with. I mean, they're killing it at DB, but like they need some of that to trickle over to the other defensive spots out of the high school ranks. Wiggins would be one heck of a start. Great football player and one of the best prospects, not only in Florida, but I think the country. Like, he's ranked number 67 nationally by 24/7. That might even be low. He's really good. So Jalen Wiggins, great kid, great prospect, and Florida State would do well to get him. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you very much for making this your first listen each and every day. Please hit that like button and subscribe, rate, and review. I will see you again very soon on Locked On Seminoles tomorrow. Everybody have a great one.